Hi, I'm Heidi Alexandra and you're watching UQTV. Today we're interviewing Lisa Messenger, the Editor-in-Chief of the Renegade Collective. Today's spotlight session is an extra special one for me because this entrepreneur is truly making things happen. Lisa is an innovator with a know-how and a vision to succeed. She's a woman who can truly take us behind the brand of what is now my ultra favourite magazine. So Lisa, thanks so much for joining us for UQTV today. Welcome.
Thank you, great to be here.
Excellent. So I'd love to start by just asking you, the magazine we all love and many of our viewers and readers are fans of it as well. What was the inspiration behind starting a magazine in this day and age when publications tend to be going downhill rather than up?
Yeah, well, and firstly, thank you for saying that because it's people like you who are such great advocates in the community that are really making it what it is. So the inspiration, I just got so sick of a few things really. I got so sick of all the kind of vacuous content and salacious gossip and, you know, media out there that was perpetually kind of negative. And I'd been fortunate enough, I suppose, you know, purposefully so, to have surrounded myself with so many inspirational and aspirational, amazing people on a daily basis, and kind of felt, you know, am I living in this bubble? And I thought, well, surely I can bring all these people together and kind of take them out to the rest of the world. So yeah, so that was kind of the inspiration for the magazine. And I've had my own businesses for 12.5 years and kind of a serial entrepreneur. I think I have 13 odd registered businesses and you know the story. And I just thought, you know, I feel like I've just been so fortunate to have so many extraordinary people in my life. Why can't I amplify that out and share it with everyone else?
Wow, well what a brilliant platform it is.
Yeah,
and so may I ask, how many countries are you published in now and which one made you the most chuffed? Which one did you go, oh yes?
So yeah, so we launched on the 4th of March last year. So I launched in 11 countries at the time, which was huge. So you know, the same print magazine, that means 11 different distributors. We're currently in 29 different countries, and the plan by December 2014 is to be in 50. So yeah, so that's with the print magazine, which is pretty huge, and then we're on digital platforms like Zinio and you know, all sorts of other platforms around the world, so it makes it accessible to a lot more countries than the 29 that we're currently in. I think one of the biggest ones, you know, is the US, and my anniversary issue, which we got sitting here with Martha Stewart on the cover, who's just, you know, she's extraordinary. She's like the stalwart of publishing, and you know, she's got 8,500 products and things. And that issue actually, because we're a little bit behind at the moment, because we print everything in Australia at the moment and ship it around the world, which will change in a couple of months, and we're going to start printing in the UK and in the US. But yeah, that launches on the 5th of June in the US, and we're in all the LAX and JFK airports and in 700 and something Barnes and Noble stores. So I'm really, really excited about that, because the US numbers have been building really substantially, but I think that'll really make a big, you know, impact over there. So
oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's very humbling and, you know, one of those little pinch myself moments.
Yeah. And I guess what that brings up is also that you obviously think big. Yeah. Have you always thought big, or was it a moment or something that happened that shifted you into thinking in that way?
You know, I think as I'm thinking about the thinking big question, it's kind of funny because my first business, which was 12.5 years ago, and I called it messenger marketing, and I was working from my kitchen table, as so many people can relate to, I'm sure. But I thought big from the start, just different variables of big. I think I had the foresight to get a PO box in Australia Square in Sydney, and you know, that sounds very important. So that was one of the things that I did first to make myself appear, I guess, bigger than I was. And so, you know, and I remember saying to people back then, you got to do this, you got to think big, you got to kind of position yourself where you want to be, and not just have back then, you know, a Hotmail email address or whatever else. But this was actually very purposefully big, because, you know, I've had all these businesses for such a long time, and, you know, in comparison, they've all been complete failures. No, not quite. But you know, nothing's gone quite like this. But it was funny, I was sitting in Bali almost 2 years ago, and I rang Claire, who's my 2IC that you know well, and she's been with me now 7 years. And I said to her, and I had a horrible holiday. I don't know how you have a horrible holiday in Bali, but it was because I had seeded the idea of the magazine in my head, and I was kind of a little bit fed up with my other businesses, and I was kind of like, I've been going for a long time, and I'm sure a lot of people hit this kind of 7-year or whatever year each it was, and I've got a house up near Byron Bay, and it was kind of that turning point for me. It was like, do I just kind of close it all down for a while, move to Byron, and you know, become a hippie, because I am kind of quite a hippie anyway. Yep. And or do I go big? And I rang Claire, and we were about to sign a lease on a new office, because I wanted, you know, completely different energy if I was going to launch this. And she said, sign the bloody lease. Like, yes, we're going to do it. And I just thought, you know, Australia is an extraordinary market, and I love Australia, and it's very much my home, but I thought I need to now, if I'm going to do this and put so much blood, sweat and tears, as happens when you're an entrepreneur, into this, then I want to go really big. So it was very much my, you know, very purposeful to be global from the outset.
Fantastic.
I didn't know exactly what that was going to look
meant.
Like. I remember saying to my mum, she's like, I have heard it so many times. I kept saying, it's going to be big, Mum, it's going to be big. And when we had the actual launch, I remember her saying, wow, it's a real magazine. You know, I think with entrepreneurs, and you know, especially for me, I always I have an idea, and then I work out how to make it happen. And it's true of absolutely everything and every extension that I do. So yeah, anyway, it's big.
It absolutely is. So you obviously work out where you're going to go and then come back and do the how am I going to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and often not even where I'm going to go. I'm just like, here's an idea. I mean, that's very much, everything I do now is pretty much purposely counterintuitive. And so I pretty much come up with an idea, and I talk a lot about failing fast. I come up with a lot of ideas, you know, at least 20 every day. And because I've built such a vast network now, you know, I can ping an email off to a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer at a big corporate, and say, hey, what do you think of this? And gauge very quickly, you know, is there a market for this? And then either kind of knock it on the head quickly, iterate it into another version, you know, park it for later, or kind of go all guns a-blazing. And I think most people, in my experience, do the other way. They kind of write 100-page laborious business plans, put all their heart, soul, time, energy, money into it, and then realize, A, I don't have a market for it, or, you know, and that's really hard. I think that's a really long, slow, hard failure. Yeah. So I fail a lot, and I'm really proud of it. And that's kind of, you know, it's kind of weird for people to say, because there's so much stigma attached to failure. But yeah, I have a lot of colossal failures, fast failures.
So obviously you don't have what I see a lot of entrepreneurs and business people I work with have, a real perfectionism trait.
No. So
obviously course correction better than perfection for you, and it's that make it up as you go, correct as you go.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's, I'm going to take this off because it's jingling. Yeah, so in terms of perfectionism, that's very much been a learned thing. You know, I am a perfectionist in terms of, I know very much what I want my brand to look and feel like, and how I want it to be represented, and you know, the end product has to be perfect and it's quality over quantity every time. But I've had to be able to let that go, because when you're moving that fast, I can't be attached to the outcome before the outcome even, before I even know what it's going to be, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So yeah, so whatever you just said made a lot of sense, like correct.
Course correction is better than perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. That's good. Yeah, yeah.
So you mentioned your mother before, and also Claire, who works with you. Obviously, it's really important to have good people supporting you when you're dreaming and thinking big. Can you tell me a bit about, has that been a strategic decision process? Have you got a set of values? How have you formed the people who you allow to be around you and supporting you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think one of the things that are most paramount to me are getting really clear on what my values and my vision and my overall purpose are, but not being too attached to it. Again, you know, I have this sort of detachment from outcome, which is really important. So many people say to me, oh, what's your 5-year plan? I don't know what I'm doing in 5 days, like quite purposefully. But in terms of who I surround myself with, yeah, absolutely, that is a very, very conscious decision. So yeah, Claire has been with me 7 years now. She arrived, we laugh, we say off the street, and she says, don't say that. But she literally came to drop her CV in one day 7 years ago when I was desperate for a PA. Had worked in retail before, had never worked in an office, and it was just brilliant. And I kind of said, can you start tomorrow? And 7 years later, she's very much my 2IC and my marketing director, and she's fabulous. And you know, and then very purposefully, I pick an extraordinary team. I mean, my team are like family, and it's very much a culture that we adhere to, and that's been something that's been learnt and purposely created over the years. You know, my dog Benny comes to work every day. My office looks nothing like an office; it looks like a home, and people love coming into that environment, I think. And yeah, and I'm equally as much as surrounding myself with extraordinary people who support and lift me up. It's also important to surround myself with people who can say no to me. Because I think. It's a beautiful thing with the magazine in particular, that now I'm fortunate enough and humbled to receive hundreds of emails every day from people saying, it's amazing, it's amazing. And I have to almost desensitize myself to that a little bit. I love it and it's incredible. But you know, if I kept taking that on continuously, it would be my ego would be out of control. And actually it's the people who say to me, I don't quite like the way you did this, or I feel you deviated from your values, or hey, what are you doing there? That's what I really tend to listen to more. That's the really constructive and critical feedback that I need.
That's fantastic. Keep you grounded and centered.
Yeah, because, you know, on that, and the groundedness is something that's so important to me. You know, I often say this, and I believe it and live it 100%, I hope, and slap me if I don't. But it's, you know, the magazine, I'm just a conduit for what I'm producing here. So if, as it grows, you know, in any way I start to get an ego around that, and of course I have some, we all do it, but hopefully I have some awareness around it. You know, it's very much around remaining grounded and, you know, taking all of that in, but being accessible and realizing that, you know, the success of this isn't because of me. You know, I may provide the architecture for it to happen, but it's very much around the community. I mean, it's the community that is, you know, and I think that's true for anything.
Well,
as soon as we lose sight of that, it's very dangerous.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And I can say from every contact we've had at UQ Power with your staff and your team that it's all been very real and very genuine and very loving.
Thank you.
Which is lovely.
Yeah, good.
And it segues nicely because I actually sent out to our viewers that if anyone had questions to send them in. So that segues nicely into a question that I actually got from one of our viewers, Tracy. And she asked, with a head filled with so many great ideas and constant requests for help from others, how do you manage to find the off switch and relax?
Yeah, well, thank you. Was that from Tracy?
Tracy.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Look, it's really important, and that's actually something about 5 years ago I changed the mechanics of how I was doing business because, and I'm sure many of your viewers can relate to this, that, you know, there's suddenly you know, all these people start saying, can I have a coffee with you? And a lot of people position it like, you know, can I have an hour of your time for a coffee? I hear you're the guru of. And it's kind of like, well, that doesn't really fit and it's not very congruent. And so what I realized was that I had to value myself, you know, and I think that's a really important message for anyone because, and it's hard, you know, my natural default is I love people and I want to like chat to people all the time. But what I suddenly realized is I will have a coffee with anyone if they believe truly that they are my equal. If they position me as better than them or some kind of guru or a quick fix or a pill or I'm going to fix everything for them suddenly, I'm not interested because what happens is the energy, my energy just gets completely sucked out and I'm left feeling completely like almost violated. And it's, you know, and that's tough. And I think, you know, when that became real for me and I was able to, you know, put some construct around that and realize what was going on, then I realized that's not okay. And there's got to be some kind of value exchange, either energetically and you meet me and you actually believe in yourself enough to have a proper real conversation with me and you get vulnerable and authentic and real. And then I love it, you know, it's great. And I could have a million of those. Or it has to be a monetary exchange. You know, there has to be some kind of exchange. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are wanting to, you know, sap your energy. And my reality is, and this is going to sound so weird to so many people, I'm an introvert. Like, and, you know, and I display complete extrovert, you know, qualities. But a lot of people who are out there doing the kind of work that I do just love to go home and, you know, be on the couch in my Uggies and my tracky ducks, curled up with my partner and my dog, and that is kind of how I recharge. And so that time I need to value because that's how I can be out there and loud and proud and the best version of myself because I enable myself to have that downtime. That was a long-winded answer.
No, and that's not surprising. A lot of my own clients who are CEOs and people like that who are in the public spotlight do say they're introverts and they can do the energetic, but they do need to switch off and come home and recoup that. So if I can ask you a question from another viewer. Belinda asked, what's your thoughts on how game-changing, rule-breaking and thought leadership can permeate the thinking of the majority and not just the minority of business leaders and executives that get it?
I love that. And this is actually, I have Britt here who's one of my interns and she said, can I drive up with you? And we're talking about this very thing driving up to Newcastle today. And it's really interesting because, you know, it's fine having a platform, you know, whether it be speaking or the magazine or social media or whatever, and, you know, reaching an existing platform of, you know, thought leaders or, you know, intellects or game changers or, you know, rule breakers or style makers, as my line says. And it's the interesting thing now is, you know, how do we go beyond that and how do we go to people who've never been surrounded by or never, you know, had the fortune to be in front of someone who can inspire them, and just, you know, sometimes it's just that little light switch or that little thing that happens in your life, and it's like, okay, well, how do we now reach those people? And so, you know, for me, it's very much around disseminating the message across multiple platforms. You know, interviews like this with you are fantastic because we go out to a whole lot of people. The magazine, you know, the social media, some TV stuff, and all sorts of other things. And so, and I think actually the bigger answer to your question is that I'm no one special. Like, seriously, I can look you in the eye and say I am no one special. I am a little country bumpkin from Coolah, which is like 6 hours west of nowhere, 6 hours west of Sydney. I grew up, you know, making mud pies in the creek and riding horses. That is my background. As I said, you know, I've never worked in a magazine. I've got some business acumen that I've learned over the years. But so how I can actually get out to other people is to say, you know, that's my message. I'm just a living, breathing example of anything's possible. And so if that can reach out to all sorts of other people and say, it's just me, like I wasn't given anything on a silver spoon, then I think that's the power of the message. So, you know, the more I can get that out, the better, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, can I ask, what are the most popular stories that you include in your magazine that people write in about and say, we love that, we want more of that?
Yes, you can, and I love that question because some of my friends, and I won't mention their names, at big publications, you know, big media conglomerates like Bauer, you know, they say that, you know, people love it, and it's true, you know, the gossip, and that's why the New Ideas and the Who Weeklies and everything else kind of work. And they say that there's not room necessarily for, you know, really heartfelt stories and, you know, stories behind stories and businesses and philanthropic and charitable organisations and people who are really trying to change the world. Well, I disagree. And our numbers in terms of sales and things are proving that otherwise. And so that absolutely warms my heart to think that, you know, really good stories. I mean, I have a mandate that every single issue of the magazine, every single story has to be about the inspirational, but not just reading about Heidi and how fabulous she is and, you know, I can't be her and that's unattainable. It's very much around, well, but how can I get there? What was her journey? And so I think people just love that because it's real. And they love the philanthropic stories and the charitable stories as well. So for me, it's just, you know, it's exposing real people and real stories behind businesses and brands and cutting behind the spin and hype that's so much out there. And so it's giving that authenticity to something as opposed to talking about Kim Kardashian and how big her boobs are. No, so I'm being a bit facetious, but you know what I mean. It's So I think so that really excites me that we're kind of starting to you know, penetrate the world and you know, and debunk a lot of the things that are said about the existing media, and that real stories and great stories and positive stories can get out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, the first time I joined an international mastermind, it was like going, these are my people, my tribe. And the same thing when I picked up your magazine, the very first issue, I knew straight away, I was like, these are stories about my people. I think that's what resonates with people, the fact that it is very raw and real.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the power of community and the high level of engagement. Like, people just want to, you know, talk about what's in there, or they want to share their stories, and pretty much I say, you know, anyone can be. I have a massive belief, and maybe we'll get to some examples about this, that the world is very flat in actual fact. It's our own fear or it's our own perceptions that preclude us from doing things or achieving greatness. And so I believe that absolutely anyone can be in the magazine, as long as, you know, they've got a business or an idea or whatever, and they're prepared to talk about it and be real and talk about their vulnerabilities and where they've been in the hard times, and not just talk about, you know, the gloss and this is why it's fantastic and aren't they great. No one, you know, actually that's another reason I started the magazine. So many people would interview me over the years on the other side of the media, and I'm grateful, thank you for them interviewing me, but they would say to me, wow, you've done all this and isn't it great? And so it was fantastic for my spin and hype and keeping the story out there and, you know, everything else. But was that really imparting anything of genuine value to the readers? I don't think so, because all they could see was Lisa Messenger, the success story. They couldn't see Lisa Messenger, who's had that many failures and, you know, and gave up drinking 10 years ago because, you know, that was a disaster in my life, and all sorts of other things. And so it's that stuff that I want to put out there, you know? It's the rawness, the realness.
So on that note, to kind of finish up, what is the next personal challenge as well as challenge for the magazine that you see on the horizon that you're working towards? Yes,
so I don't even know where to begin. Like it's it's so big now. So in terms of, so personal challenge, I mean, it's very interlinked. You know, I don't think there is such a thing as work-life balance. I think that positions work as the enemy. And for me, this is very much my purpose. You know, I have specifically and consciously chosen to put myself out there and to, you know, inspire other people, show that anything's possible, and create an extraordinary entrepreneurial community and facilitate, you know, that interaction and that engagement. So for me, it's just very much around, you know, how do we take that message and grow it and build it across more countries and reach more people. And really, it's not about me at all. It's about how do I help other people to give them a leg up to show that they can achieve whatever their greatness is and whatever their purpose is. So that's very, very much 100% my personal mission now.
And obviously it's also your name, so it was meant to be from birth, perhaps.
I know, which is so funny. And the amount of times people have said to me, wow, when did you change your name to fit with like what you're actually doing? And I'm like, you know, it's pretty amazing. I think I've kind of grown into my
namesake.
Still growing into my name.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fantastic, and I know our viewers will have loved getting some golden nuggets and kernels and ideas from you. I really appreciate your candidness, and you are everything that you say you are as far as your values. You definitely live those. It's been wonderful talking to you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Beautiful. Yeah, gorgeous to be here.
Did you like this video? If so, share it with your friends, your colleagues, and maybe even your boss. And if you want even more resources and information to power up your people, head on over to uqpower.com.au. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you next time on UQTV.
I loved interviewing Lisa Messenger from Renegade Collective. Her honesty and contrarian thinking are contagious. If you want to hear more about her philosophy for thinking big and challenging the status quo, then join us for an exclusive live event where she will be our special guest. Keep your eye out on www.uqpower.com.au/events for more details soon.